What you're about to read will leave you breathless. This extraordinary true story of redemption, courage, and an unbreakable bond forged in the darkest of circumstances will transform how you see the connection between wounded warriors. Both, human and canine. A decorated veteran discovers an abandoned military K9, chained and left to die in remote mountain wilderness. His decision to save this dog uncovers a conspiracy that reaches the highest levels of military command and ignites a dangerous mission that will heal two broken souls. Like, share, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because this journey of second chances will restore your faith in humanity. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The mountains loomed silent against the darkening sky as Captain Nathan Reed navigated the winding trail, his hiking boots crunching over fallen pine needles and loose stone. Each deliberate step carried him further from civilization and deeper into the wilderness of the Cascades. The weight of his tactical backpack felt insignificant compared to the invisible burden he'd carried since returning from his final deployment 14 months ago. Nathan's eyes, once sharp and alert during 3 tours of duty, now appeared hollow, haunted by memories he couldn't outrun, no matter how many miles he hiked. The fading scars on his left forearm were nothing compared to the wounds that remained, unseen, carved into his psyche by what military doctors clinically labeled severe PTSD with comorbid depression. What the medical reports didn't capture was how it felt to lose not just your squad, but your sense of purpose. His beard, now 4 months untrimmed, and his lean frame told the story of a man who had been slowly disappearing, even from himself. Tomorrow would mark exactly 1 year since he'd lost Staff Sergeant Luis Morales in the ambush that also claimed the life of Varro, their unit's Belgian Malinois K9. The guilt of surviving when they hadn't followed Nathan home like a shadow. The therapist at the VA had suggested hiking as a healthy coping mechanism, an alternative to the whiskey that too often became his evening companion. But Nathan's family didn't know the full purpose of today's expedition deep into the most remote section of the range. They believed he was on a 3-day mindfulness retreat, a plausible story given his sporadic attempts at recovery. His younger sister Caroline had seemed relieved when he mentioned it, interpreting it as a sign of progress. The truth was far darker. The folded note in his jacket pocket contained his final thoughts, his apologies, his surrender. After months of fighting the memories, the nightmares, and the crushing sense of purposelessness, Nathan had made his decision. He would disappear into these mountains, leaving behind a world where he no longer felt he belonged. The tactical backpack contained enough supplies for someone planning to return, another careful deception. His service weapon, cleaned and loaded, rested in its holster against his hip. One way or another, the pain would end here, in this remote wilderness, far from the sympathetic glances and well-meaning but hollow assurances that it gets better. As dusk approached, a light rain began to fall, droplets weaving through the pine canopy overhead. Nathan pulled up his hood, the weather matching his internal landscape. He would make camp, write one final addition to his note, and then a sound cut through the steady patter of raindrops, so faint that at first Nathan thought he had imagined it. His body responded before his mind fully registered what he'd heard, military training kicking in automatically. He froze, listening intently, his senses suddenly sharp in a way they hadn't been for months. There it came again, a low whimper, followed by the distinct sound of metal links shifting against each other. The noise emanated from somewhere off the main trail, maybe 50 yards through the dense underbrush to his right. Nathan hesitated. Whatever was making that sound, likely an animal in distress, had nothing to do with his purpose here. Intervening would only delay the inevitable. Yet something about that whimper pulled at him, activating deeply ingrained instincts that had once defined him. Last mission, he muttered to himself, unslinging his pack and extracting his tactical flashlight. The beam cut through the growing darkness as Nathan pushed through the undergrowth, branches scraping against his waterproof jacket. The rain intensified, drumming steadily on the leaves above as he moved cautiously toward the source of the sound. The terrain sloped downward, leading him into a small, natural clearing. What the flashlight beam revealed stopped Nathan cold, his breath catching sharply in his chest. There, bound to a gnarled pine trunk by heavy-duty chains, lay a military dog, a Belgian Malinois, its tan and black coat matted with mud and blood. The animal's ribs protruded sharply against its skin, evidence of prolonged starvation. One ear was partially torn, and multiple wounds crossed its emaciated frame, some fresh, others partially healed into ugly scars. But it was the dog's eyes that struck Nathan like a physical blow, amber-colored and filled with exhaustion, pain, and a flicker of something that looked disturbingly like recognition as they reflected his flashlight beam. "Jesus Christ," Nathan breathed, moving closer slowly. The dog growled weakly, attempting to bare its teeth despite obvious pain. Its body language spoke of abuse and fear, yet there was something profoundly wrong about the scene beyond the obvious. A cruelty. This wasn't some abandoned pet or even a typical case of animal abuse. The chains were military grade, the same type used for securing equipment in forward operating bases. And around the dog's neck, nearly obscured by matted fur, Nathan spotted what appeared to be a tactical canine collar. Kneeling in the mud, Nathan directed his light toward the collar, and what he saw made his blood run cold. A metal tag dangled. From it, caked with dirt. With careful movements that wouldn't startle the injured animal, Nathan reached out slowly, tension building in his chest as his fingers closed around the tag. Wiping away the grime, the engraving became visible. Sigma, Military Working Dog, Unit 8-117. Nathan sat back on his heels, mind racing. Unit 8-117 was a Special Operations K-9 unit, elite dogs trained for the most dangerous missions. But Sigma wasn't just any military dog. The designation was distinctive, one Nathan recognized immediately from classified briefings. Sigma had been reported killed in action during a high-profile operation 6 months ago. There had been an official memorial service, commendations, even a brief mention in the Secretary of Defense's public remarks about K-9 heroes. Yet, here was Sigma, very much alive despite horrific conditions, chained in the remote wilderness where no hiker would normally venture. "How the hell did you get here, boy?" Nathan whispered, earning another weak growl from the dog. Nathan's training took over as he assessed the situation. The dog needed immediate medical attention. The chains were secured with a heavy padlock that would require tools to break. Most significantly, someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to keep this dog hidden but alive, a contradiction that made no sense unless Sigma knew or had seen something that made him both dangerous and valuable. As he contemplated his next move, a crack of breaking branches echoed from the forest behind him. Nathan's hand moved instinctively to his holstered weapon as he pivoted, scanning the darkness beyond his flashlight beam. For a moment, he could have sworn he saw movement, a shadow ducking behind a distant tree. They weren't alone in these mountains. The dog's ear twitched at the sound, and despite its weakened state, Sigma's posture shifted subtly. The growl deepened, no longer directed at Nathan, but at something or someone watching from the darkness. Even in his depleted condition, the military working dog was alerting to a threat, falling back on years of intensive training. In that moment, something changed within Nathan. The fog of despair that had clouded his mind for months seemed to lift, replaced by a clarity he hadn't experienced since his last deployment. The suicidal mission he'd planned for himself suddenly seemed remote and unimportant compared to the mystery unfolding before him. Here was a highly trained military dog who should be dead, chained and hidden in a remote location, showing signs of systematic abuse rather than accidental injury or neglect. The implications were staggering, pointing to deliberate action by someone with military connections and resources. Whatever Sigma had witnessed, whatever someone was willing to fake a K9's death to conceal, must be significant. And whoever had left the dog here might be returning, or watching even now from the surrounding forest. Nathan made his decision in seconds. His own pain and planned final act would have to wait. The soldier who had lost his purpose stared into the eyes of the dog who should be dead, and for the first time in 14 months, Captain Nathan Reed felt something beyond grief and guilt. He felt needed. He felt the stirring of purpose. "I'm getting you out of here," he told Sigma quietly, reaching slowly into his pack for his multi-tool. "And then we're going to find out what the hell is going on." The rain continued to fall as darkness settled completely over the mountains. But for Nathan Reed, something long extinguished had begun to flicker back to life, a determination that would soon pull him into a dangerous conspiracy neither man nor dog was prepared to face alone. Nathan worked quickly but methodically on, the padlock securing Sigma's chains, his fingers steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. The multi-tool's lock-picking attachments, skills acquired during special operations training, proved effective against the military-grade padlock. After several tense minutes, the lock clicked open. "Easy now," he murmured as he carefully unwound the heavy chains from Sigma's body. Each link revealed new evidence of abuse, raw patches of skin where metal had rubbed fur away, puncture wounds, and methodical burn marks that spoke of deliberate, calculated cruelty. This wasn't random mistreatment. It appeared systematic, almost like an interrogation technique applied to an animal. Sigma remained unnervingly still throughout the process, amber eyes tracking Nathan's every movement. Only the occasional tremor running through the dog's emaciated frame betrayed his physical distress. When the last chain fell away, Nathan expected the military K9 to attempt escape or perhaps even attack him out of fear or confusion. Instead, Sigma struggled to stand, legs trembling with the effort. After months of confinement, the dog's muscles had atrophied significantly. Still, the determination in those eyes struck Nathan. This was a warrior refusing to surrender despite overwhelming odds. "We need to move," Nathan said softly, gathering the chains and lock as evidence. Whoever did this might come back. The breaking branches he'd heard earlier weighed heavily on his mind. Extracting his sidearm, Nathan performed a quick perimeter scan, though the darkness and increasing rain limited visibility. Nothing moved in the shadows beyond their small clearing, but his instincts, dormant for months but now firing on all cylinders, warned of observation. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Returning to his pack, Nathan pulled out his emergency medical kit. He approached Sigma, slowly, hand extended palm up in the universal canine greeting. "I need to check your wounds before we move. I won't hurt you." Sigma watched him warily, but didn't growl or retreat. Taking this as permission, Nathan carefully examined the most serious injuries. Several showed signs of infection, requiring immediate treatment. He applied antibiotic ointment to the worst wounds and wrapped a particularly deep laceration on the dog's hind leg with gauze. Throughout the treatment, Sigma remained stoic, only flinching slightly when Nathan touched particularly painful areas. The behavior was textbook military working dog, trained to endure discomfort during medical procedures in the field. "You're definitely the real deal," Nathan muttered, finishing the temporary first aid. But how are we going to get you out? Of here? You can barely stand, and I'm at least 5 miles from the nearest access road. As if understanding the predicament, Sigma made another attempt to stand, this time successfully, though his legs quivered with the effort. The dog took an unsteady step toward Nathan, then another, determination evident in every painful movement. "Good boy," Nathan encouraged, genuine admiration in his voice. "But we've got a long way to go, and you're in no condition to walk that distance." Making a quick decision, Nathan emptied his pack of all non-essential items, creating space inside for the smaller supplies. Then, removing his rain jacket, he spread it on the ground next to Sigma. "This isn't going to be comfortable for either of us," he told the dog, "but it's our best option." With careful movements, Nathan encouraged Sigma onto the jacket, then gathered the corners to create a makeshift sling. The dog weighed far less than he should have, another testament to his prolonged starvation, making the improvised carrier somewhat feasible. Still, lifting the Malinois required significant effort, the added weight immediately straining Nathan's shoulders and back. "Not exactly standard extraction protocol," Nathan grunted as he adjusted his grip on the sling. "But we'll make it work." With Sigma secured, Nathan began navigating back toward the main trail, moving as quickly as his burden allowed. The rain had intensified, turning the forest floor slick and treacherous. Every few minutes he paused to listen, hyper-aware of potential pursuit. Something about this situation felt increasingly dangerous. The systematic abuse, the remote location, the military connection. None of it made sense unless someone very powerful wanted this dog kept alive, but hidden. After 20 minutes of arduous progress, Nathan stopped to rest briefly, lowering Sigma gently to the ground. The dog's breathing had become labored, his condition clearly deteriorating with each passing minute. "We need to find you real medical help," Nathan said, offering his water bottle with a cupped hand to help Sigma drink. The dog lapped weakly at the water, barely maintaining consciousness. That's when Nathan heard it, the unmistakable whirring of rotors in the distance. A helicopter approaching from the east, its sound partially muffled by the rain and wind, but growing steadily louder. Military training kicked in as Nathan quickly assessed their situation. The thick canopy overhead provided some cover, but thermal imaging could potentially detect them if the helicopter was so equipped. More concerning was what the aircraft represented, someone with significant resources taking interest in these remote mountains on this particular night. "Not a coincidence," Nathan muttered, gathering Sigma back into the sling. "Change of plans, boy, we're going off-trail." Instead of continuing toward the main path, Nathan veered sharply west, moving perpendicular to his original route. The terrain became increasingly difficult, steeper, rockier, with denser undergrowth that clawed at his clothing and face. But these same features provided better concealment from aerial observation. The helicopter seemed to be conducting a search pattern, its rotors growing louder, then fainter, as it moved in a grid formation overhead. Whoever was piloting knew what they were doing. This was a professional search operation. After another half-hour of punishing progress, Nathan's muscles burned with fatigue. Sigma had gone completely still in the sling, consciousness apparently fading in and out. The dog needed professional medical attention soon, or all this effort would be for nothing. Through a break in the canopy, Nathan spotted lights in the distance, not the helicopter, but what appeared to be structure lights, perhaps a cabin or ranger station. He adjusted course immediately, hope providing a second wind to his exhausted body. As they drew closer, the outline of a small cabin came into view, nestled against the mountainside approximately half a mile ahead. A single light burned in what appeared to be a front window, and a rugged truck was parked alongside. The property seemed isolated enough to potentially offer sanctuary without immediately exposing them to whoever was conducting the aerial search. Nathan paused at the edge of the clearing surrounding the cabin, conducting a careful assessment. The structure appeared to be a private residence rather than an official ranger station, possibly a hunting cabin or weekend retreat for someone seeking solitude. Smoke curled from the chimney, indicating occupation. The risk calculation was complex. Approaching meant exposing himself and Sigma to an unknown civilian who might be hostile, might have communications that could be monitored, or might simply refuse to help. Continuing through the mountains meant certain medical deterioration for Sigma and increased risk of capture or worse. Sometimes you have to make the call with insufficient intel, Nathan whispered to the semi-conscious dog. The military phrase, one his commanding officer had often repeated during high-pressure operations, felt appropriate to their desperate situation. Decision made, Nathan adjusted his grip on the sling and stepped into the clearing, approaching the cabin directly. No point in stealth now. Appearing furtive would only increase suspicion from whoever owned this isolated dwelling. When he reached the porch steps, Nathan gently lowered Sigma to the wooden planks before knocking firmly on the door. He positioned himself where he could be clearly seen through the front window, hoping to appear as non-threatening as possible, despite his tactical gear and the obvious military working dog at his feet. After several moments, the door opened, a few inches, secured by a heavy chain. Through the gap, Nathan saw a middle-aged woman with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. Her expression was guarded, her right hand concealed behind the door, likely holding some form of protection. "I don't want any trouble," she said, voice steady despite the unusual situation. "State your business." "My name is Captain Nathan. Reed, U.S. Army Special Forces," Nathan replied, deciding that honesty offered their best chance. "This is a military working dog with severe injuries who needs immediate medical attention. We're not here to cause problems, ma'am, but we need help." The woman's eyes moved from Nathan to Sigma, widening slightly as she took in the dog's condition. Her assessment was quick and clinical, suggesting some familiarity with medical situations. "That dog's been tortured," she stated flatly, no question in her voice. "Yes, ma'am," Nathan confirmed, "and someone's looking for him right now. I can leave if you're not comfortable with the risk, but he needs help soon, or he won't make it." The woman regarded him silently for a long moment, her gaze penetrating as though trying to read his intentions. The helicopter's distant whirring became audible again, growing steadily louder as it continued its search pattern. Her eyes flicked upward at the sound, then back to Nathan's face. Making her decision, she closed the door briefly to remove the security chain, then swung it wide. "Open. Bring him in quickly," she instructed, stepping aside. "I'm Dr. Mei Chen. I used to be a field surgeon before I decided humans were overrated." Relief flooded through Nathan as he carefully lifted Sigma back into the sling and carried him into the cabin. Dr. Chen secured the door behind them, engaging multiple locks before drawing heavy curtains across all windows. "Put him on the table," she directed, gesturing to a solid wooden dining table. "I'll get my kit." As Dr. Chen disappeared into another room, Nathan gently transferred Sigma to the indicated surface. The cabin's interior was simple but well-appointed. A TC combination living area and kitchen with a stone fireplace, practical furniture, and walls lined with bookshelves. Medical texts occupied prominent positions among the volumes, supporting the woman's claim of surgical training. When Dr. Chen returned, she carried a comprehensive medical bag that appeared far more sophisticated than typical civilian first aid equipment. Without ceremony, she began examining Sigma's condition, her movements efficient and practiced. Military, working dog, Belgian Malinois, approximately 5 to 7 years old, severe malnutrition, multiple contusions and lacerations, signs of prolonged restraint and systematic torture, she catalogued aloud, plus potential internal injuries that will require more thorough examination. She looked up at Nathan, eyes sharp with intelligence and suspicion. Now, while I start treatment, perhaps you'd like to explain why you're carrying a supposedly dead military canine through these mountains during a storm, with what sounds like a helicopter search team after you. Nathan met her gaze steadily. That's a complicated story, Doctor, and honestly, I don't have all the answers yet. But I think this dog is the key to something bigger than either of us expected to deal with tonight. Dr. Chen's hands never stopped working as she listened, already starting an IV line into Sigma's foreleg with practiced precision. I left a life of complications behind for a reason, Captain Reed. But it appears complications have found me anyway. She nodded toward the helicopter sounds still audible outside. Whoever's flying search patterns on a night like this isn't doing it for a simple missing pet. You've brought trouble to my door. Yes, Mom, Nathan acknowledged, unwilling to lie, and I'm sorry for that, but I couldn't leave him to die. Something in Nathan's tone must have resonated with her, because Dr. Chen's expression softened marginally. No, I suppose you couldn't. She turned her attention back to Sigma. He needs fluids, antibiotics, wound cleaning, and nutritional support immediately. Some of these injuries appeared deliberately exploratory in nature, almost surgical. This wasn't just abuse, it was interrogation. The clinical assessment confirmed Nathan's suspicions. Can you help him? I can stabilize him, she replied, already administering medications through the IV line, but he'll need ongoing care and probably some rehabilitation. She paused, glancing up at Nathan. Assuming you both live long enough for that to matter. The helicopter sounds suddenly intensified dramatically, the aircraft apparently passing directly overhead. Both Nathan and Dr. Chen instinctively looked up, though the ceiling blocked any view of the search team. They're getting closer to your trail, Dr. Chen observed quietly, which means we don't have much time for you to decide your next move, Captain. Dr. Chen worked methodically on Sigma's injuries while Nathan secured the cabin, checking entry points and assessing their defensive options. The helicopter's persistent buzzing overhead maintained a constant reminder of the threat circling like a predatory bird. Military search patterns, Nathan observed, peering through a small gap in the curtains. They're using a standard grid. Search, expanding from the location where I found Sigma, professional, thorough, and persistent. You sound almost admiring, Dr. Chen remarked as she cleaned a particularly deep laceration on Sigma's flank. Professional respect, Nathan corrected. Knowing your adversary's capabilities is crucial for survival. These aren't amateurs or local authorities. The flight pattern, the timing, the resources deployed. This is a specialized team with significant backing. Dr. Chen looked up from her work, eyes narrowing. You still haven't explained how you found this dog or why he matters enough to warrant such a response. Nathan considered his answer carefully. The doctor was risking her safety by helping them. She deserved some explanation. Yet he himself didn't possess all the pieces to this puzzle. I was hiking in the mountains, he began, deciding that partial truths were necessary. I heard sounds of distress and found Sigma chained to a tree, deliberately hidden but kept alive in that condition. The dog tag identifies him as a Special Operations K9, one officially reported killed in action 6 months ago. Dr. Chen's hands paused momentarily before resuming their precise movements. A military cover-up then, fascinating and completely unsurprising. You sound like you have experience with military deception, Nathan observed. 3 tours as a combat surgeon in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq, she replied without looking up. I've seen enough classified reports contradicting reality to develop a healthy skepticism toward official narratives. This revelation shifted Nathan's assessment of their situation. Dr. Chen wasn't merely a civilian doctor, but a veteran with field experience, someone who understood operational security and tactical thinking. The coincidence seemed almost too convenient. "That's quite a background for someone living alone in a remote cabin," Nathan commented, watching her reaction carefully. Dr. Chen's smile was tight but genuine. After witnessing humanity at its worst, solitude becomes appealing, though not everyone who retreats from civilization is running from something, Captain. Sometimes they're running towards something else, peace, perhaps. The pointed observation struck uncomfortably close to Nathan's own circumstances. His hiking trip had been a retreat of a different nature, a final withdrawal from a world that no longer made sense to him. Yet here he was, suddenly thrust back into purpose by this unexpected encounter. "Fair point," he acknowledged, "though, in my experience, it's usually both." Dr. Chen administered another injection to Sigma before responding. "The helicopter is moving away temporarily, but they'll be back. They're establishing a perimeter, most likely. What's your plan?" Nathan had been considering their options while securing the cabin. None seemed particularly promising. "We can't stay here long," he concluded. "They'll eventually expand their search to include structures in the area. Sigma needs medical attention beyond emergency treatment, which means we need to reach civilization, but not anywhere these people can easily find us." "You're assuming I'm coming with you," Dr. Chen noted, raising an eyebrow. "I'm assuming nothing," Nathan corrected. "You've already taken significant risk by helping us this far. I wouldn't ask you to leave your home." Dr. Chen finished bandaging one of Sigma's wounds before responding. "This dog has been subjected to professional, systematic torture techniques. Someone with significant resources faked his death, kept him in captivity for months, and is now hunting him with military precision. Whatever he knows or represents, it's clearly valuable enough to kill for." She met Nathan's gaze directly. "I left the battlefield to escape making life-or-death decisions under impossible circumstances. Yet here we are." As if responding to her words, Sigma stirred on the table, his amber eyes opening to fix on Dr. Chen with surprising clarity despite his condition. The dog's ears pricked forward slightly, the first sign of alert engagement Nathan had seen from him. "He recognizes something in you," Nathan observed. "Military working dogs are trained to identify specific types of personnel, medics among them." Dr. Chen's expression softened as she gently placed her hand where Sigma could see it before, making contact with his head. "Military dogs saved my team more than once. They detect dangers humans miss, remember routes humans forget, and display loyalty humans rarely deserve." While she spoke, Nathan noticed something unusual about Sigma's reaction. The dog's attention had shifted from Dr. Chen to a specific point across the room, a framed photograph on a side table. His focus was intense, body tensing despite his injuries. Following Sigma's gaze, Nathan moved toward the photograph. It showed a younger Dr. Chen in combat fatigues alongside several other military personnel in what appeared to be a field hospital setting. Nothing immediately struck him as significant until he examined the background more carefully. There, partially visible behind the main subjects, stood a man in standard military attire, but with distinctive shoulder patches indicating specialized service. "Who is this?" Nathan asked, pointing to the figure. Dr. Chen glanced over, her expression changing subtly. "Colonel James Harrington. He oversaw several forward operating bases during my second tour. Why?" "Because Sigma is fixated on his image," Nathan replied, watching the dog's continued attention to the photograph. "Military working dogs are trained to recognize key personnel through photographs before deployment. His reaction suggests recognition." Dr. Chen moved to stand beside Nathan, examining the photo more carefully. "That was taken at FOB Sentinel. In 2018, Colonel Harrington was conducting an inspection tour. I only met him briefly. What do you remember about him? Professional, reserved, clearly experienced, she recalled. There were rumors he was connected to some classified program involving advanced field intelligence, but that wasn't unusual. Every other officer seemed to be running something secret. Nathan's mind worked to connect these disparate pieces. A Special Operations K-9 officially declared dead, but actually tortured and hidden. A military colonel somehow connected enough to trigger the dog's recognition. A high-resource search operation in remote wilderness. "Does the colonel still serve?" he asked. "Last I heard, he'd been promoted to brigadier general and moved to intelligence operations stateside," Dr. Chen replied. "That was about 2 years ago, shortly before I left service." The helicopter sounds intensified again, drawing Nathan back to their immediate situation. "We need to move soon. Sigma's condition stabilized for transport, but far from healthy," Dr. Chen assessed. "I've given him fluids, antibiotics, and pain management. His major wounds are cleaned and dressed, but he needs ongoing care, proper nutrition and recovery time." She made a decision, moving with sudden purpose toward a closet. "I'm coming with you. This dog won't survive without continued medical attention, and something tells me finding another doctor willing to treat him without questions would be challenging." From the closet, she extracted a go-bag that appeared already packed for emergency departure. Nathan recognized the preparation of someone who never fully left behind the habits of combat deployment. "Always ready to run, Doctor?" he observed. "Always prepared for contingencies," she corrected, adding several medical supplies to the bag. "A habit that's serving us well at the moment." Nathan couldn't argue with that logic. "We'll need transportation. They'll be watching the main roads." Dr. Chen zipped her bag closed with finality. "There's an old fire service road that runs behind this property. It connects to a secondary highway about 7 miles south. My truck has 4-wheel drive and a covered bed where we can secure Sigma." "You've thought this through quickly," Nathan noted with approval. "Combat medicine teaches rapid decision-making," she replied simply. "Now help me prepare Sigma for transport. We need to move in the next 10 minutes." Together, they created a stable transport bed in the truck's covered cargo area, using blankets and secure strapping to ensure Sigma wouldn't sustain further injury during travel over rough terrain. Nathan transferred his remaining supplies to Dr. Chen's more comprehensive medical kit, keeping only his sidearm and tactical essentials on his person. As Dr. Chen gathered final necessities from the cabin, Nathan knelt beside Sigma, who remained alert despite his weakened condition. "What did you see, boy?" he murmured, smoothing a hand gently over the dog's head. "What made someone go to these lengths to keep you hidden?" Sigma's eyes held intelligence that seemed almost human in its depth, the gaze of a creature who had witnessed something significant, but lacked the means to communicate it directly. The dog's ear twitched at a particularly loud helicopter pass, his body tensing in response. "They won't find you again," Nathan promised, the words feeling like a sacred oath. For the first time since losing his team, Nathan felt the familiar sensation of absolute commitment to a mission. Protection at all costs, regardless of personal risk. Dr. Chen returned, having changed into practical clothing better suited for their escape. "Ready?" Nathan nodded, gathering Sigma carefully into his arms one more time. The dog weighed slightly more now, hydration beginning to restore some of his depleted tissues, but still far below healthy weight. "Before we go," Nathan said, pausing at the door, "I should be clear about something. By helping us, you're potentially implicating yourself in whatever conspiracy surrounds Sigma. The people searching for him have significant resources and clearly few moral limitations. This isn't just about treating an injured animal anymore." Dr. Chen checked her watch, expression resolute. "Captain Reed, I spent years patching up soldiers only to send them back into combat, often watching them return to my operating table in worse condition, sometimes not returning at all. I performed surgeries knowing the chances of survival were minimal. I've made triage decisions that haunt me still." She looked at Sigma, then back to Nathan. "For once I have the opportunity to help without being part of a machinery designed primarily for destruction. This dog deserves better than what was done to him, and whatever he knows might actually matter beyond the next hill taken or village secured." Her words struck Nathan profoundly. Like him, Dr. Chen carried the weight of military service differently than civilians might imagine. Not just the trauma of witnessed violence, but the moral complexity of participation in a system with often questionable outcomes. "Then let's move," Nathan agreed, newfound respect in his voice. They exited through the rear of the cabin, Nathan carrying Sigma while Dr. Chen led with a small tactical flashlight providing minimal illumination. The helicopter had temporarily moved to a different search grid, giving them a narrow window for their escape. As they carefully loaded Sigma into the prepared bed of the truck, Nathan realized something fundamental had changed within him since discovering the injured dog just hours earlier. The resignation note in his pocket now seemed written by a different person, someone who couldn't see beyond his own pain to the possibility of purpose renewed. "The fire road is rough," Dr. Chen warned as they climbed into the truck's cab. "Keep your sidearm ready. If they've established a proper perimeter, we might encounter ground teams." Nathan checked his weapon as Dr. Chen started the engine, keeping the headlights off as they slowly navigated away from the cabin, using only moonlight filtering through breaking clouds. "Where are we heading?" he asked. "I have a colleague about 70 miles south," she replied, carefully steering around a particularly deep rut in the service road. "Another military doctor who left service under circumstances similar to mine. She works at a private veterinary clinic now, specializes in working dogs. If anyone can help Sigma without asking too many questions, it's her." As they slowly descended the mountain, leaving behind the helicopter's search pattern, Nathan found himself contemplating the strange turns that had brought him to this moment. Hours ago, he had been prepared to end his life, seeing no path forward beyond grief and purposelessness. Now he was protecting a dog who officially didn't exist, fleeing an unidentified but clearly powerful adversary, with a mission that mattered in ways he couldn't yet fully understand. "Sometimes the purpose finds you," Dr. Chen said quietly, as if reading his thoughts, "even when you're running from it." Nathan glanced over at her, surprised by the insight. "Is that what happened with you? Purpose found you?" "Something like that," she acknowledged. "I thought I was leaving everything behind when I chose this mountain. Turns out, some callings don't take rejection well." The truck jolted over, a particularly rough patch, eliciting a soft whine from Sigma in the covered bed. Both Nathan and Dr. Chen winced at the sound. "We'll get him somewhere safe," Nathan assured her. "And then we'll figure out what makes him valuable enough to fabricate a military canine's death, torture him for information he can't verbally provide, and deploy search teams when he escapes." Dr. Chen nodded, her expression grave. "Whatever it is, Captain Reed, I suspect it's going to be even worse than we're imagining." Nathan checked his weapon again, an automatic gesture born of years in combat zones. "Usually is," he agreed. "But for the first time in a long time, I find I actually want to know the truth, regardless of how ugly it might be." The admission surprised him as he spoke it aloud. Somewhere between finding Sigma and making the decision to protect him, Nathan had reconnected with something he thought permanently lost, a desire to engage with the world rather than exit it, to serve a purpose beyond himself, to face truths rather than surrender to despair. As the truck carefully navigated the treacherous fire road descending from the mountains, Nathan Reed felt something like hope stir in his chest. Not the naive optimism of youth, but the tempered, resilient hope of a warrior who has seen darkness, yet chooses to continue fighting anyway. The fire road eventually connected with a narrow county highway, allowing Dr. Chen to finally activate the truck's headlights as they merged onto more established pavement. Dawn was still several hours away, the night sky gradually clearing as the storm system moved eastward. Sigma remained quiet in the truck bed, his conditions stable but precarious. "We should avoid main thoroughfares," Nathan advised, scanning their surroundings with practiced vigilance. "If they have the resources. For helicopter surveillance, they likely have connections to local law enforcement or traffic monitoring systems." "Agreed," Dr. Chen replied, taking a sudden turn onto an even smaller road that paralleled the highway. "This route adds about 20 minutes, but keeps us off major traffic cameras. Military habits die hard." The detour took them through densely forested terrain, interspersed with occasional small farms and rural properties. Few lights showed at this hour, most residents still deep in sleep, unaware of the drama unfolding on their quiet back roads. "Tell me more about your colleague," Nathan prompted, wanting to assess what awaited them at their destination. "Dr. Diana Kavinsky," Chen explained, eyes fixed on the winding road ahead. "Former Army Veterinary Corps, specialized in military, working dogs. We served together on my first tour. She experienced conflicts with certain command decisions regarding canine treatment protocols. Left service about 3 years ago." "Conflicts?" Nathan pressed, recognizing the careful phrasing. That often disguised deeper issues. Dr. Chen's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "Diana discovered inconsistencies in the reporting of canine casualties. Dogs listed as killed in action when evidence suggested otherwise. Equipment designated for canine support diverted to unauthorized operations. She raised concerns through proper channels and suddenly found herself facing disciplinary action for unrelated infractions." Nathan absorbed this information, the parallels to Sigma's situation unmistakable. She was silenced. "Effectively," Chen confirmed. "Honorable discharge after 15 years of exemplary service. Convenient medical issues discovered during her final physical. The usual bureaucratic elimination of inconvenient personnel." "Yet you maintained contact." A faint smile touched Chen's lips. "We were careful. No digital footprints, no phone calls that could be easily monitored. Old-school communication methods, postcards with predetermined codes, messages left with trusted intermediaries. We both recognize the potential value of maintaining connections outside official channels." Nathan nodded with approval. The doctor's paranoia, or perhaps justified caution, had created a resource exactly when they needed one. "And you trust her completely with this situation?" "As much as I trust anyone," Chen replied honestly. "Diana risked her career trying to protect military working dogs. If anyone will help Sigma without immediately reporting to authorities, it's her." They lapsed into silence as the truck continued along the back roads, each processing the implications of what lay ahead. Nathan periodically checked their surroundings, alert for any signs of pursuit, while also monitoring Sigma through the small pass-through window into the truck bed. The dog had fallen into a restless sleep, the medications providing temporary relief from his injuries. After approximately 30 minutes, Dr. Chen broke the silence. "You haven't asked the obvious question, Captain Reed." Nathan turned his attention from the side mirror. "Which is?" "What a Special Forces captain was. Doing alone in remote mountains with a sidearm and tactical gear, but no communication equipment," she stated bluntly. "Not standard hiking equipment even for veterans." The question hung in the air between them, direct but not accusatory. Nathan considered deflection, but quickly decided against it. Dr. Chen had risked everything to help them. She deserved honesty, however uncomfortable. I wasn't planning to come back, he said simply, the admission strangely liberating after months of careful concealment from family and friends. Dr. Chen nodded, her expression softening slightly. I suspected as much. The look in your eyes when you arrived, I've seen it before, in mirrors sometimes. But not anymore? Nathan asked, genuinely curious about her journey from that dark place to her current stability, however isolated. It comes and goes, she admitted. Less frequently now, the mountains help. So does distance from constant reminders. She glanced at him briefly before returning her attention to the road. Finding purpose again helps the most. The simple truth of her statement resonated deeply with Nathan. The weight of the resignation note still in his pocket seemed to grow heavier with each mile that took him further from his original plan and deeper into this unexpected mission. Sigma changed your trajectory tonight, Dr. Chen observed quietly. That's what these dogs do sometimes, alter the course you thought was fixed. Before Nathan could respond, movement in the truck bed caught his attention. Sigma had awakened and was attempting to sit up, clearly agitated despite his weakened state. Something's wrong, Nathan alerted, already reaching for the pass-through window to check on the dog. Pull over when you can. Dr. Chen immediately began scanning for a suitable location, finding a turnout near an abandoned farm stand about a quarter-mile ahead. She guided the truck behind the structure, providing concealment from the road. Nathan quickly exited and moved to the truck's rear, opening the bed cover carefully. Sigma was fully alert now, ears forward, eyes focused intently despite his injuries. The dog wasn't displaying signs of physical distress. This was something else entirely. He's alerting, Nathan realized, recognizing the posture from his time working with military canine units. Something's triggered his training. Dr. Chen joined him, medical bag in hand. His vitals seemed stable. Could be disorientation from the medications or... She stopped mid-sentence as Sigma suddenly turned his attention to a specific direction, a low growl emanating from his throat despite his weakened condition. The sound raised goosebumps on Nathan's arms. This wasn't the reaction of a confused or frightened animal. This was a trained military working dog detecting a threat. We're not alone, Nathan whispered, immediately dropping into a defensive crouch and drawing his sidearm. Cover Sigma, I'll check the perimeter. Moving with practiced stealth, Nathan circled the abandoned farm stand, utilizing available cover while scanning for any signs of surveillance or pursuit. The pre-dawn darkness complicated visual confirmation, but years of special operations training had honed his other senses to compensate. That's when he caught it, the faint but distinctive click of a tactical communication device approximately 50 yards to their east, coming from a small cluster of trees alongside the road. Someone was positioned there, maintaining communication silence except for necessary status updates. Nathan retreated to the truck, keeping his movements concealed by the structure. "We have company," he informed Dr. Chen in a hushed tone. "At least one observer in the tree line east of our position, likely more in concealed locations." "How did they find us?" Chen asked, already gathering their essential supplies while maintaining a calming hand on Sigma. "They're good," Nathan acknowledged grimly. "Probably deployed ground teams along all possible exit routes from the search area while maintaining aerial surveillance. We haven't been followed, we've been anticipated." Dr. Chen processed this with remarkable composure. "Options?" Nathan quickly assessed their situation. "They haven't approached yet, which means they're either waiting for reinforcements or in confirmation that Sigma is with us. We can't outrun them in the truck now that they've spotted us." He made a rapid decision based on years of tactical experience. "We need to split up temporarily, create confusion, and divide their attention." "Separate from Sigma?" Dr. Chen questioned with obvious concern. "No," Nathan clarified. "Sigma stays with you. Your medical expertise is crucial to his survival. I'll create a diversion, draw their attention, then circle back to rendezvous with you at a predetermined location. Dr. Chen considered the plan briefly before nodding. Diana's clinic is approximately 15 miles south of here. There's an abandoned grain silo about 2 miles before you reach it. Can't miss it. Painted with a faded American flag. I'll wait. There for 3 hours. After that, I proceed to the clinic without you. Agreed, Nathan confirmed, impressed with her quick, tactical thinking. Take this. He removed a small, tactical knife from his boot, handing it to her. Last resort only. Dr. Chen accepted the weapon with grim understanding. What's your diversion? Nathan smiled slightly, the familiar calculations of tactical operations bringing a strange comfort after months of civilian drifting. They're expecting us to run south, following the back roads. I'll give them exactly that, just without you and Sigma. He quickly outlined his plan. Dr. Chen would take Sigma and proceed on foot through the agricultural fields to the west, using irrigation ditches and crop rows for concealment, eventually circling south toward their rendezvous point. Meanwhile, Nathan would drive the truck in a conspicuous escape attempt, drawing their pursuers into a chase away from Chen and Sigma's actual position. You realize you're volunteering to be the hunted, Dr. Chen noted with concern. I've played that role before, Nathan replied with unexpected calmness. And unlike earlier today, I now have a reason to make sure I survive the experience. Something passed between them in that moment, a mutual recognition of how dramatically circumstances had changed in just a few hours. The man who had climbed a mountain to end his life was now risking that same life to protect others, his purpose restored through the most unexpected of encounters. Working quickly but methodically, they prepared Sigma for transport. Dr. Chen fashioned a secure sling from a blanket that would allow her to carry the injured dog across her shoulders, distributing his weight more effectively for the cross-country journey ahead. Nathan transferred essential medical supplies to a compact pack she could easily manage while keeping her hands relatively free. 3 hours, Dr. Chen confirmed, as she secured the makeshift harness around Sigma, who remained alert but cooperative, seemingly understanding the gravity of their situation. If I don't make it, get Sigma to your colleague and continue investigating what makes him so valuable, Nathan instructed, checking his sidearm one final time. The photograph in your cabin suggests a connection to Brigadier General Harrington. Start there, but carefully. If he's involved, he has significant resources and influence. Dr. Chen nodded, her expression solemn but determined. And if you do make it? Nathan allowed himself a brief smile. Then we find out together what Sigma knows that's worth killing for. With final preparations complete, Dr. Chen carefully lifted Sigma into the carrying position they had devised. The dog whined softly but settled against her back, his training once again evident in his cooperation despite pain and unfamiliar circumstances. Ready? Nathan confirmed, receiving a nod in response. Move out on my signal. I'll create enough noise and visibility to draw attention, then maintain it for at least 10 minutes to give you adequate distance. As Dr. Chen positioned herself at the edge of cover, preparing to move into the open fields beyond, she paused briefly. Captain Reed, she said quietly, whatever you were climbing that mountain to do, I'm glad you found another path. The simple statement struck Nathan with unexpected force. So am I, Doctor, he replied with genuine conviction. So am I. With a final nod of mutual respect, they prepared to execute their plan. Nathan counted down silently, then moved decisively to the truck, starting the engine with deliberate noise. As expected, the sudden activity triggered movement in the tree line, their observers now alerting to the apparent escape attempt. Nathan reversed the truck with screeching tires, then accelerated onto the road heading south, headlights blazing. In his rearview mirror, he caught the momentary image of Dr. Chen slipping into the shadowed fields with Sigma secured against her, moving perpendicular to his direction of travel. The diversion worked immediately. Two unmarked vehicles pulled onto the road behind him, their driving pattern clearly indicating tactical pursuit rather than coincidental travel. Nathan pushed the truck faster, deliberately maintaining visibility while calculating how long he needed to draw their attention to ensure Dr. Chen and Sigma's safety. As the chase intensified, Nathan found himself experiencing something unexpected, a surge of clarity and purpose that had been absent from his life for 14 months. The tactical calculations, the high-stakes maneuvering, the protection of vulnerable allies, these elements reconnected him with the aspects of military service that had once given his life meaning before tragedy and loss had stripped it away. Weaving the truck through the rural backroads, maintaining enough speed to keep his pursuers engaged without creating dangerous conditions for civilian traffic, Nathan realized that in trying to save Sigma, he might have inadvertently saved himself. As well, the dog, who should have been dead, had somehow restored life to the man who had been ready to die. Whatever secrets Sigma carried, whatever conspiracy had led to his torture and concealment, now represented more than just a mystery to be solved. They represented Nathan Reed's unexpected second chance at purpose, meaning, and connection, and he wasn't going to waste it. Nathan maintained the chase for nearly 20 minutes, leading his pursuers on a circuitous route through increasingly remote backroads. He needed to give Dr. Chen and Sigma enough time to put substantial distance between themselves and the pursuit team, while also preserving his own chances for escape and eventual rendezvous. The truck's fuel gauge dipped dangerously low, a factor he hadn't initially considered in his hasty plan. The two unmarked vehicles remained persistent in their pursuit, neither gaining significant ground nor falling far behind. Their disciplined driving tactics confirmed Nathan's suspicions about their professional training. These weren't local law enforcement or private security. Their pursuit methodology reflected specialized military or intelligence community protocols. Approaching a particularly dense stretch of forest where the narrow road wound through steep terrain, Nathan made his decision. This would be his extraction point. He accelerated suddenly, creating momentary distance from his pursuers, then navigated a sharp curve and immediately killed the headlights. In the darkness, he quickly steered the truck onto a narrow logging path barely visible among the trees, stopping just far enough to be concealed from the main road. Within seconds, Nathan had abandoned the vehicle and moved deeper into the forest, using the natural cover of pre-dawn darkness and dense vegetation. Behind him, he heard the pursuit vehicles slow as they lost visual contact. Their headlights sweeping the area, searching for signs of his continued travel. Moving with practiced stealth despite the difficult terrain, Nathan established a position that allowed him to observe without being detected. His pursuers had deployed from their vehicles, tactical flashlights now scanning the area where his truck had seemingly vanished. 4 individuals, all male, all moving with military precision, conducted a coordinated search pattern. Their equipment appeared standardized but unmarked, further suggesting a specialized unit operating with deliberate anonymity. One figure, separated from the others, touching his ear in the universal gesture of someone receiving communication through an earpiece. After a brief exchange, he rejoined his team, pointing toward their vehicles with clear urgency. Nathan observed with cautious optimism as the team rapidly returned to their vehicles and departed, continuing south along the road rather than concentrating their search on the immediate area. Their behavior suggested a change in priority, perhaps new intelligence about Dr. Chen and Sigma's separate escape route, or orders to establish containment points further ahead. Regardless of the reason, their departure provided an opportunity. Nathan oriented himself using the stars, now visible through breaks in the forest canopy, establishing a westward route that would eventually allow him to circle south toward the rendezvous point, while avoiding roads and likely observation positions. The physical exertion of rapid movement through difficult terrain brought welcome clarity to his mind. Each deliberate step, each calculated navigation decision connected him more deeply to the skills and training that had once defined his identity. The muscle memory of tactical movement through hostile territory felt like reconnecting with a vital part of himself he had nearly discarded. As pre-dawn light gradually transformed the eastern sky from black to deep blue, Nathan found himself on an elevated ridge that provided momentary visibility across the rolling countryside. In the distance, he could make out scattered farmhouses, the occasional vehicle on rural roads, and the geometric patterns of agricultural fields, within one of which Dr. Chen would be navigating with Sigma. Checking his watch, Nathan calculated they still had nearly 2 hours before the scheduled rendezvous at the grain silo. His circuitous route would require most of that time, assuming he maintained a sustainable pace while avoiding detection. Stretching briefly to alleviate the growing fatigue in his muscles, Nathan resumed his journey with renewed determination. The morning progressed as Nathan continued his careful navigation across the rural landscape, utilizing natural features for concealment while maintaining his southward trajectory. He avoided farmhouses and outbuildings where curious residents or workers might spot his passage, instead keeping to woodlots, drainage ditches, and the margins of fields where vegetation provided adequate cover. Approximately 90 minutes into his journey, Nathan encountered an unexpected obstacle, a wide, slow-moving river cutting directly across his planned route. The waterway was too deep to ford safely, with steep banks on either side eliminating easy crossing points. A bridge was visible approximately half a mile downstream, but using it would expose him to potential observation. As Nathan considered his options, movement caught his attention on the opposite bank. A figure was methodically working its way upstream, staying low and using the same type of concealment techniques he himself employed. The fluid, deliberate movement pattern was unmistakable, military or specialized training. Nathan immediately dropped to a prone position, using the riverbank vegetation for cover while extracting his compact binoculars from his pack. Focusing carefully on the figure, he felt a surge of recognition mixed with concern. Dr. Chen, still carrying Sigma in the improvised harness, was navigating parallel to the river from the opposite direction. Her route suggested she had encountered the same obstacle from the other side and was searching for a crossing point. More concerning was her obviously exhausted condition. Even from this distance, Nathan could detect the fatigue in her movements and the careful way she periodically adjusted Sigma's weight across her shoulders. Understanding the risk, but seeing no alternative, Nathan produced a small signal mirror from his survival kit. Using the strengthening morning light, he flashed a brief sequence. 3 short reflections, a deliberate technique taught to special operations teams for non-electronic communication. Dr. Chen froze instantly, dropping lower into the vegetation. Nathan repeated the signal once more, then waited. After several tense moments, he observed her cautiously scanning her surroundings before finally locating his position across the river. She raised one hand briefly, acknowledging his presence. Using hand signals familiar to military personnel, Nathan indicated a potential crossing point further upstream where the river appeared to narrow slightly. Dr. Chen nodded her understanding and began moving in that direction, maintaining her concealed approach. 20 minutes later, they reconvened at the narrowest section of the river, still formidable but potentially crossable with assistance. Sigma remained conscious but subdued in his harness, his condition stable but far from improved. "You shouldn't be here," Dr. Chen whispered as Nathan helped her lower Sigma carefully to the ground. The diversion was supposed to draw them away completely. Plans rarely survive contact with the enemy, Nathan replied, quickly assessing both their conditions. Their search pattern changed abruptly. I think they received new intelligence or orders. Dr. Chen's expression darkened. They have more resources than we anticipated. How's he doing? Nathan asked, gently examining Sigma's bandages while providing the dog reassuring contact. Holding steady, but the cross-country journey hasn't helped his condition, Chen admitted, stretching her shoulders to relieve the strain of carrying the dog's weight. Another hour of this, and we might start seeing deterioration. He needs proper medical facilities soon. Nathan nodded, considering their situation with tactical precision. The rendezvous point is still approximately 3 miles south. This river crossing is our most immediate challenge. After that, we'll need to cross a secondary highway before reaching the grain silo. Any sign they've identified our actual destination? Chen asked. Inconclusive, but their behavior suggests expanded search parameters rather than concentrated focus, Nathan assessed. They're casting a wider net, which dilutes their effectiveness but increases the area we need to navigate cautiously. Together, they formulated a crossing plan. Nathan would traverse first with their essential supplies, then return for Sigma, allowing Dr. Chen to cross unencumbered before handing the dog back to her on the opposite bank. The approach minimized risk to Sigma while accounting for their respective physical conditions. The crossing proved challenging but manageable. The river's current was stronger than it appeared from the banks, but Nathan's powerful swimming ability compensated for the unexpected force. Transferring Sigma required particular care to keep his wounds dry and his position secure, but within 15 minutes, all three had successfully reached the opposite shore. As they recovered briefly before continuing their journey, Sigma's behavior suddenly changed. The dog's ears pricked forward, his attention focusing sharply downstream despite his weakened condition. A low growl emanated from his throat, the same alert posture Nathan had observed previously when detecting potential threats. He senses something, Nathan whispered, immediately scanning the direction of Sigma's focus. Dr. Chen gently restrained the dog, preventing any vocalization that might reveal their position. Pursuit team? Possibly, Nathan acknowledged, extracting his binoculars again, or it could be something else entirely. Carefully examining the downstream area, Nathan eventually located what had triggered Sigma's alert response. Approximately half a mile away, a small group of individuals was operating what appeared to be sampling equipment at the river's edge. Their vehicle, an unmarked white van with satellite communication equipment mounted on its roof, was parked on a service road leading to the water. Not our pursuers, Nathan confirmed quietly. Different team, different purpose. They're collecting water samples. Environmental researchers, Dr. Chen suggested, though her tone indicated skepticism. With that level of communications equipment and perimeter security? Unlikely, Nathan replied, continuing his observation. 3 personnel handling collection, 2 providing security oversight. That's not standard protocol for environmental monitoring. What caught Nathan's attention most significantly was Sigma's continued focus on the team despite the distance and his injuries. The dog's training typically prioritized human threats, explosives, or specific target identification. This sustained attention to seemingly routine water collection activities suggested something more significant than immediately apparent. Sigma recognizes something about that operation, Nathan concluded, or someone involved in it. Dr. Chen carefully adjusted her position for a better view without exposing their location. Could be coincidence, Military working dogs are trained to alert on numerous potential threats or specific triggers. True, Nathan acknowledged. But combined with everything else, his official death report, the systematic torture, the high-resource pursuit operation, nothing about Sigma's situation suggests coincidence. Making a rapid tactical decision, Nathan removed a small digital camera from his pack. We need documentation. Whatever they're doing might connect to why Sigma is so valuable. Using the maximum zoom capability, Nathan captured several images of the collection team, their equipment, and the specialized vehicle. The resolution would be limited at this distance, but potentially sufficient to identify equipment types, methodologies, or personnel upon later examination. "We should move now," Dr. Chen urged, monitoring Sigma's increasing agitation. "His reaction is intensifying, which increases our risk of detection." Nathan nodded agreement, securing the camera and helping reposition Sigma in his carrying harness. As they prepared to resume their journey, he paused, struck by a realization. "The river," he said quietly. "Whatever they're monitoring or testing is in the water." Dr. Chen's expression reflected sudden understanding. "And this river runs through several military installations upstream before reaching civilian populations downstream." The implication hung between them, adding new dimensions to the mystery surrounding Sigma. If the dog had witnessed something related to water supply contamination or testing, perhaps at a military facility connected to Brigadier General Harrington, it would explain both the elaborate cover-up of his continued existence and the significant resources deployed to recover him. "We need to get water samples of our own," Nathan decided, quickly locating an empty medication vial in Dr. Chen's medical kit. "For what purpose?" she questioned, as he carefully collected river water in the small container. "Insurance," Nathan replied grimly, sealing the vial and securing it in his pocket. "Or evidence. Whatever Sigma witnessed, this water might be part of it. If nothing else, it gives us another avenue to investigate if we reach safety." With renewed urgency, they continued their journey southward, maintaining careful concealment, while increasing their pace as much as Sigma's condition and the terrain allowed. The stakes had clearly escalated beyond the immediate survival of one military working dog. Whatever conspiracy they had stumbled upon potentially affected military personnel and civilian populations alike. As they navigated through alternating woodlands and agricultural areas, Nathan found himself processing the implications of their discovery. His military career had exposed him to classified operations of various ethical complexities, but the deliberate suppression of information affecting public water supplies, if that indeed was what they were witnessing, crossed lines that even the most pragmatic operational objectives couldn't justify. "You're thinking quite loudly, Captain," Dr. Chen observed during a brief rest period. Nathan met her gaze directly. "If this is what it appears to be, the implications extend far beyond military operational security. This becomes a matter of public safety, potentially civilian lives." Dr. Chen nodded solemnly. "The fundamental ethical conflict of military service. When does duty to the institution become secondary to broader human welfare?" She checked Sigma's vitals while continuing, "It's why I eventually left. Too many situations where medical ethics collided with military objectives, with the latter invariably taking precedence." "And what would you do in our current situation?" Nathan asked, genuinely curious about her perspective. Dr. Chen considered the question carefully. "Gather evidence, establish facts, determine actual risk levels before taking actions that could have cascading consequences." She stroked Sigma's head gently, "But ultimately, protect those who cannot. Protect themselves, whether human or canine." Her answer resonated with Nathan's own evolving thoughts. The mission parameters had expanded significantly from his initial objective of simply saving an abused military dog. They were now potentially involved in uncovering something with far-reaching implications. a responsibility neither had sought, but neither could ethically ignore. The grain silo should be visible once we cross the next rise, Dr. Chen noted, gathering her strength for the final leg of their journey. Assuming we haven't been compromised, we're nearly at the rendezvous point. Nathan helped adjust Sigma's carrying harness to redistribute weight more effectively. And then your colleague's veterinary clinic, where hopefully we can begin piecing together what makes this dog so valuable and so dangerous to those who want him silenced. As they resumed their careful progress toward the rendezvous point, Nathan reflected on how dramatically his perspective had transformed in less than 24 hours. The same skills and training that had once seemed nothing more than painful, reminders of loss, now served a purpose that transcended his personal grief. The tactical awareness, physical resilience, and ethical foundation that had defined his military service had found new application in protection rather than destruction. Whatever awaited them at the rendezvous point and beyond, Nathan Reed had rediscovered something he thought permanently lost, the conviction that his continued existence served a purpose worth the pain of survival. The abandoned grain silo loomed against the brightening morning sky, its weathered metal surface adorned with a faded American flag mural, just as Dr. Chen had described. Standing approximately 80 feet tall, the structure dominated the surrounding landscape of harvested fields and scattered farm buildings. Its isolated position offered both strategic advantage as a rendezvous point and concerning vulnerability if their pursuers had somehow anticipated their destination. Nathan surveyed the area methodically through his binoculars, conducting a comprehensive security assessment before approaching. No vehicles were visible within a half-mile radius, and the access road showed no signs of recent traffic beyond. Agricultural equipment. The silo itself appeared genuinely abandoned, with rusted equipment scattered around its base and vegetation reclaiming portions of the concrete foundation. "Perimeter appears secure," he reported to Dr. Chen, who was tending to Sigma behind the cover of a dense hedgerow. "No obvious surveillance or ambush positioning. If they've identified this location, they're maintaining exceptional operational discipline." Dr. Chen nodded, her professional demeanor belying the physical exhaustion evidenced by her posture. "Sigma needs rest soon. His vitals are stable but deteriorating incrementally. The antibiotics are managing infection, but his overall condition requires more comprehensive treatment than field medicine can provide." Nathan understood the urgency in her assessment. Despite their successful evasion thus far, Sigma's medical needs represented a non-negotiable timeline they couldn't extend indefinitely. The injured military dog had demonstrated remarkable resilience, but even the most rigorously trained K9s had physical limitations. "We'll approach using that drainage. Ditch for cover," Nathan decided, indicating a shallow trench running within 30 yards of the silo. "It gives us concealment for most of the approach and rapid access to the structure's southern entrance. If we encounter resistance, we withdraw immediately to that wooded area east of our position." With the plan established, they moved carefully toward the silo, Nathan leading while Dr. Chen followed with Sigma secured in the carrying harness. The morning had fully arrived now, golden sunlight illuminating the landscape and eliminating the natural concealment darkness had previously provided. Their progress was necessarily slower, each movement calculated to minimize visibility from potential observation points. Reaching the silo without incident, Nathan conducted a quick but thorough inspection of the entrance. The heavy metal door hung partially open on rusted hinges, the interior dark and apparently undisturbed. No footprints marked the dusty concrete floor beyond what might be expected from occasional teenage explorers or transient shelter seekers. "Clear," he whispered, signaling Dr. Chen to enter while he maintained perimeter awareness. The silos, Interior was cooler than the outside air, smelling of aged metal and long-departed grain. Sufficient light filtered through various small openings to illuminate a space largely empty, except for abandoned equipment and debris accumulated over years of neglect. A metal staircase spiraled upward along the curved interior wall, leading to multiple elevated platforms that had once facilitated grain processing. This provides adequate temporary shelter, Nathan assessed, helping Dr. Chen lower Sigma from the carrying harness onto a relatively clean section of floor. Defendable entry points, multiple potential exit routes, and elevated observation positions. Dr. Chen immediately began a comprehensive examination of Sigma, checking bandages, wound conditions, and vital signs with practiced efficiency. The cross-country journey hasn't helped his recovery, but he's maintaining remarkable stability considering his condition. These military dogs are bred and trained for exceptional resilience. Nathan secured their position, establishing observation points that allowed monitoring of approaches from all directions without exposing themselves to external view. The tactical considerations provided welcome focus for his mind. His military training reasserting itself with each calculated decision. How long was Diana planning to wait at this rendezvous point? He asked, checking his watch against their original timeline. 3 hours from our separation, Dr. Chen replied, administering additional medications to Sigma through his IV port, which gives us approximately 45 minutes before she'd proceed to the clinic without us. Nathan nodded, considering their options, assuming she hasn't been intercepted or compromised. The possibility hung between them like a physical presence, another unknown variable in an increasingly complex situation. If those pursuing Sigma had somehow identified Dr. Kavinsky as a potential ally, the veterinary clinic might already be under surveillance or worse. Diana's cautious, Dr. Chen stated with quiet confidence. She wouldn't approach the rendezvous if she detected surveillance, and she has contingency protocols in place at the clinic, security measures that would alert her to unauthorized entry or observation. As they settled into their temporary shelter, Sigma's conditions stabilized enough for him to accept small amounts of water and a specialized high-calorie nutritional supplement Dr. Chen had included in her medical supplies. The dog's awareness remained remarkable despite his physical condition. His eyes tracked movement with intelligent focus, his posture adjusting subtly when Nathan changed observation positions. "He understands we're helping him," Nathan observed, watching Sigma's attentive response to their activities. "Military working dogs develop extraordinary human bonds," Dr. Chen explained, checking the dog's hydration level. "Their training creates partnerships that transcend typical animal behavior. They recognize allies versus threats with remarkable accuracy." Nathan approached Sigma carefully, kneeling to the dog's eye level. The Belgian Malinois watched him with unwavering attention, no trace of the fear or aggression he had initially displayed when discovered chained in the mountains. "What did you see, boy?" Nathan asked quietly, reaching out slowly to stroke the dog's head. "What makes you valuable enough to fake your death and keep you prisoner all these months?" Sigma's response was unexpected. At the gentle physical contact, the dog leaned almost imperceptibly into Nathan's hand, a subtle gesture of trust that contrasted sharply with his earlier defensive posture in the mountains. Something had changed in the dog's assessment. He had categorized Nathan not merely as a non-threat, but as something more significant, an ally, a partner. The realization struck Nathan profoundly. This wasn't simply a rescue mission anymore. Something deeper was forming, a connection between a soldier who had lost his purpose and a military dog who had endured unimaginable suffering, yet retained his core training and abilities. Both were survivors of different traumas, both adrift from their intended paths. Dr. Chen observed the interaction with clinical interest. Military working dogs choose their handlers as much as handlers choose them, she noted. The most effective K9 teams form when that selection is mutual. Before Nathan could respond, Sigma's demeanor suddenly changed. His ears shifted forward, body tensing despite his weakened condition. A low, almost inaudible growl emanated from his throat, the same alert behavior they had witnessed previously. Nathan immediately moved to his observation position, scanning the surroundings with heightened vigilance. "What do you see, boy? Where's the threat?" Dr. Chen quickly secured their supplies, preparing for potential rapid movement. "Could be our pursuers, or something else entirely," Nathan replied, continuing his methodical scan. "His alerts have been consistently accurate, but not always for the reasons we initially assume." The sound reached them seconds later, the distant but distinctive rumble of vehicle engines approaching from the south. Nathan adjusted his position. To observe the access road without exposing himself, binoculars focused on the approaching dust cloud. "Single vehicle," he reported as it came into view. "Civilian SUV, dark blue, no visible markings, approaching at normal speed, not tactical. Driving patterns." Dr. Chen joined him at the observation point, squinting against the morning sun. "That's Diana's vehicle. She's early." Nathan maintained his vigilance as the SUV approached the silo, looking for any signs of coercion or pursuit. "Any recognition? Signals established?" 3 flashes of headlights, followed by a momentary pause before parking, Dr. Chen replied. They watched tensely as the vehicle executed exactly that pattern before coming to a stop approximately 50 yards from the silo's entrance. A woman emerged, mid-40s, athletic build, with short-cropped grey hair and the deliberate movements of someone with military background. She conducted a brief but thorough perimeter scan before approaching the structure. "That's Diana," Dr. Chen confirmed, visible relief in her voice. "Her movements are normal, no signs of duress." Nathan remained cautious, maintaining tactical positioning as Dr. Chen approached the entrance to signal their presence. The reunion between the 2 former military doctors was brief and professional. A tight embrace followed by immediate focused conversation as Dr. Kavinsky was briefed on Sigma's condition. "We need to move him immediately," Dr. Kavinsky assessed after a quick examination. "My clinic has the equipment necessary for proper treatment, and I've prepared a secure recovery space isolated from the main facility." Her attention shifted to Nathan, eyes narrowing slightly as she conducted a rapid assessment of his tactical gear and obvious military bearing. "And you are?" "Captain Nathan Reed, Special Forces," he replied simply. "Found Sigma chained in the mountains yesterday evening. Someone went to considerable trouble to keep him alive but imprisoned." Dr. Kavinsky processed this information with remarkable composure. "And now those same people are pursuing you." It wasn't a question. "With significant resources and apparent military or intelligence community methodologies," Nathan confirmed. "We've evaded immediate pursuit, but their operational capabilities suggest a high-level coordinated effort." Dr. Kavinsky nodded once. "Decision made. Then we need to move quickly. My clinic is approximately 15 minutes from here. I've implemented security protocols, monitoring approaches, alternative exit routes, secure communication channels." As they prepared to transport Sigma to the vehicle, Nathan conducted another perimeter check, the growing daylight eliminating many of the natural concealment advantages they had utilized during the night. The landscape remained clear of obvious threats, but experience had taught him that absence of visible danger didn't guarantee safety. "Something about this feels too easy," he commented to Dr. Chen as they carefully positioned Sigma in the SUV's cargo area, now prepared with proper medical padding and restraints for safe transport. The classic tactical paradox, she replied with grim understanding. When everything goes according to plan, is it because the plan is excellent or because you're being allowed to proceed? The question encapsulated their situation perfectly. Their successful evasion thus far could equally represent effective tactics on their part or a more sophisticated strategy from their pursuers, allowing them to lead the way to a secure location where Sigma could receive treatment before making their move. We proceed with the assumption that we're under observation, Nathan decided, checking his sidearm as Dr. Kavinsky returned from a final survey of their surroundings. Indirect route to the clinic, counter-surveillance driving protocols, and immediate security establishment upon arrival. Dr. Kavinsky nodded approval at the approach. The clinic has limited staff today, just my technician Marcus, who's former Army Medical Corps and fully trustworthy. I've implemented a construction closure protocol that redirects regular clients to our sister facility across town. We'll have the building to ourselves for at least 48 hours. The practical professional competence of both doctors reinforced Nathan's growing conviction that their chance encounter in the mountains had been extraordinarily fortunate. These weren't merely civilian medical professionals, but veterans with operational experience, security awareness, and the ethical foundation necessary for the complex situation surrounding Sigma. As they prepared to depart, Nathan found himself watching Sigma's reactions closely. The dog's alerts had proven consistently accurate, his training apparently undiminished, despite months of captivity and abuse. If anyone would detect ambush or surveillance at the clinic, it would be this remarkably resilient military canine. "Ready?" Dr. Kavinsky asked, sliding into the driver's seat while Dr. Chen took position in the rear with Sigma. Nathan considered their position one final time. They were committing to a specific location, reducing mobility in exchange for medical resources Sigma desperately needed. The decision carried significant tactical risk, but no viable alternatives, given the dog's deteriorating condition. "Ready?" he confirmed, taking the passenger seat with his sidearm accessible. "But maintain maximum situational awareness. Whoever wants Sigma back hasn't abandoned the pursuit. They've simply changed their approach." As the SUV pulled away from the abandoned silo, Nathan found himself contemplating the rapid evolution of his circumstances. 24 hours earlier, he had been climbing a mountain with no intention of returning, carrying the weight of survivors' guilt and purposelessness that had made continued existence seem pointless. Now he sat in a vehicle with 2 military doctors and a severely injured military working dog, engaged in evading pursuers with unknown but clearly significant resources, potentially uncovering a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of military command. Most significantly, he felt the unmistakable clarity of purpose that had defined his best years of service, the focused determination that came with protecting those who couldn't protect themselves and pursuing truths that powerful interests preferred to keep hidden. Dr. Kavinsky navigated the rural roads with practiced caution, utilizing indirect routes and counter-surveillance driving techniques that further confirmed her operational background. "The water sampling team you observed," she commented, eyes continuously checking mirrors for signs of pursuit. "That fits with reports I've been hearing through veterans' medical networks. Unusual patterns of symptoms among personnel stationed at certain installations, particularly those near watershed systems." "You think there's contamination?" Dr. Chen asked from the rear compartment. "I think there's something being deliberately introduced into specific water systems," Dr. Kavinsky corrected grimly. "The symptom patterns don't match typical environmental contamination. They present more like controlled exposure study outcomes." The implication hung heavily in the vehicle. Nathan thought about the water sample secured in his pocket, its potential significance expanding dramatically with this new context. "And you believe Sigma witnessed something related to this activity?" he asked, connecting these new pieces to their existing information. Military working dogs often accompany security details during classified operations, Dr. Kavinsky explained. They observe everything, remember locations precisely, and can lead handlers back to specific sites with remarkable accuracy, which makes Sigma dangerous to anyone conducting covert operations involving water supplies. Nathan concluded. He can't verbally report what he witnessed, but he could potentially lead investigators to operation sites. Dr. Kavinsky nodded, her expression solemn. Precisely why someone would go to extraordinary lengths to control him rather than simply eliminate him. He's a compass pointing to evidence they can't afford to have discovered. As they approached the outskirts of a small rural town, Nathan processed these implications with tactical precision. What had begun as an encounter with an abused military dog was rapidly expanding into something with potentially catastrophic implications for public health and military accountability. The challenge before them wasn't simply treating Sigma's physical injuries anymore. It was uncovering whatever truth powerful interests were willing to fake a military canine's death to conceal. A truth someone was still actively pursuing them to suppress. We're entering town limits, Dr. Kavinsky announced, reducing speed to match normal civilian driving patterns. Clinic is approximately 5 minutes ahead. Final security checks. Nathan conducted another visual sweep of their surroundings, noting surveillance camera positions, potential choke points, and civilian activity patterns. Nothing triggered immediate tactical concerns, but experience had taught him that the most dangerous environments often appeared perfectly normal until the moment they weren't. Proceed directly to the secure entrance, he instructed. Minimize exposure time during transfer. Establish interior security protocol immediately upon arrival. As Dr. Kavinsky acknowledged the plan, Nathan found himself meeting Sigma's gaze in the rearview mirror. The dog's amber eyes held a depth of awareness that transcended typical animal cognition, the focused intelligence of a highly trained military asset who understood far more than his handlers sometimes realized. We'll figure out what you know, boy, Nathan promised quietly, and make sure it wasn't in vain. Dr. Kavinsky's veterinary clinic occupied a converted farmhouse at the edge of town, its rustic exterior belying the sophisticated medical facility. Within, the property sat on 2 acres of land, partially screened by mature oak trees, with the main building positioned to allow clear visibility of approaching vehicles while maintaining a discreet professional appearance. As they pulled into the rear parking area, Nathan immediately noted the security considerations incorporated into the seemingly ordinary veterinary practice. Surveillance cameras were strategically placed but subtly integrated into the architectural elements. Multiple exit points had been maintained rather than sealed during renovation. The perimeter lighting system provided comprehensive coverage without creating obvious security indicators. You've put significant thought into defensive positioning, Nathan observed as Dr. Kavinsky guided the SUV into a covered parking bay adjacent to a private entrance. She met his gaze with professional understanding. When you leave military service under circumstances like mine, you develop certain precautions. Being proven right about those precautions is rarely satisfying. Inside, the clinic's medical capabilities impressed even Nathan's field-experienced assessment. One wing had been converted into an advanced treatment facility with equipment that exceeded standard veterinary requirements, surgical suite, diagnostic imaging technology, and rehabilitation resources typically reserved for specialized centers. This goes beyond standard veterinary practice, Nathan noted as they carefully transferred Sigma to an examination table. I treat service animals exclusively now, Dr. Kavinsky explained, already gathering specialized medical supplies. Police Canines, military working dogs transitioning to civilian service, therapy animals for veterans with PTSD. The standard of care required exceeds typical veterinary parameters. A tall, broad-shouldered man with close-cropped hair and the unmistakable bearing of military service entered from an adjacent room. "Perimeter secure, and I've activated the supplementary monitoring systems," he reported professionally before. Noticing Nathan, his posture shifted subtly, not hostile, but automatically assessing a new variable in their environment. "Marcus, this is Captain Reed," Dr. Kavinsky introduced. "He found our patient and has been instrumental in getting him to us." Captain Marcus Williams was a combat medic with specialized training in canine field treatment. The men exchanged nods of professional recognition rather than formal greetings. Marcus immediately moved to assist Dr. Chen with Sigma's medical stabilization, their collective experience creating a seamless treatment team despite having never worked together previously. "I need a full diagnostic workup," Dr. Kavinsky directed. "Complete blood panel, comprehensive imaging, wound assessment documentation, and tissue samples from the most suspicious injury sites." As the medical team worked, Nathan established security protocols throughout the facility, checking sightlines from windows, identifying defensible positions, and assessing potential vulnerabilities. The clinic had clearly been designed with security considerations in mind, but Nathan's specialized training allowed him to enhance existing measures with additional tactical positioning. "Your security systems are impressive," he commented when Dr. Kavinsky briefly stepped away from Sigma's treatment, "not standard civilian installations." "Benefits of treating canines for various government agencies," she replied without elaboration. "Create certain professional connections that prove useful when upgrading security infrastructure." The implicit understanding between them required no further discussion. Like many who had served in classified operations, Dr. Kavinsky had maintained relationships that provided resources officially unavailable to civilians. A shadow network of former operators, intelligence personnel, and specialized equipment. Suppliers that existed in the gray area between military and civilian domains. Nathan respected the calculated ambiguity of her explanation. Those connections might prove valuable beyond security systems. "We need information about Sigma, his operational history, mission parameters before his reported death, command structure, and particularly any connection to Brigadier General Harrington." Dr. Kavinsky's expression revealed nothing, but her momentary pause spoke volumes. That name carries significant weight. Pursuing information connected to him involves considerable risk. "We're already facing that risk," Nathan pointed out. "Sigma's existence contradicts official records that Harrington would have approved or at least been aware of. Understanding that connection might be crucial to comprehending why someone invested so much in keeping this dog alive but imprisoned." After a moment's consideration, Dr. Kavinsky nodded decisively. "I have contacts who might provide information, carefully, through secure channels. It will take time and require certain assurances regarding how the information will be used." "We need facts before action," Nathan assured her. "Understanding what we're facing is essential to developing an appropriate response." Their conversation was interrupted as Marcus emerged from the treatment area. "You'll want to see this," he stated simply, his professional demeanor not quite concealing his concern. They followed him back to where Dr. Chen was carefully documenting Sigma's injuries with a specialized medical camera. She indicated a series of marks along the dog's inner thigh that had been obscured by matted fur and inflammation until their comprehensive cleaning. "These aren't typical injuries or even deliberate torture markers," she explained, adjusting the lighting to highlight the pattern. "They're surgical in nature, precise incisions that have partially healed." Dr. Kavinsky examined the site with growing concern. Tissue extraction, she assessed. Multiple biopsy points with evidence of suture removal. Someone was conducting medical procedures on Sigma while he was in captivity. The implications expanded the mystery surrounding the military working dog. Not simply torture to extract information or behavioral conditioning, but actual medical sampling, suggesting an entirely different dimension to Sigma's value. Could this connect to the water testing operation we observed? Nathan questioned, the disparate elements of their situation beginning to align in disturbing patterns. It's consistent with environmental exposure monitoring, Dr. Kavinsky confirmed, her medical expertise informing the assessment. Tissue samples would reveal bioaccumulation of contaminants, particularly in a subject exposed over time through multiple pathways: dermal contact, ingestion, inhalation. Dr. Chen's expression darkened as she completed her examination. They weren't just torturing him for behavior modification or information extraction. They were using him as a living test subject, monitoring how his body processed whatever contaminant they're introducing to the water supply. The revelation added new dimensions to their understanding of Sigma's importance. Beyond his witness, value as an observer of classified operations, his body itself contained physical evidence of whatever substance was being monitored in the water system. We need comprehensive toxicology screening, Dr. Kavinsky decided immediately. Blood, tissue and hair samples for temporal exposure analysis. If Sigma's body contains evidence of deliberate water contamination, we need to identify exactly what substance we're dealing with. Marcus was already moving to prepare the necessary equipment, his military medical training evident in his efficient response to the evolving situation. The mass spectrometer will need calibration for unknown compound detection. That'll take approximately 20 minutes. While the medical team prepared for this expanded diagnostic approach, Nathan considered the tactical implications of their discovery. This explains the persistent pursuit and the decision to keep Sigma alive despite the risks. He's not just a witness, he's physical evidence. His body contains the proof of whatever operation they're conducting, which makes him even more valuable, Dr. Chen noted grimly, and makes those pursuing him even more dangerous. Nathan nodded, his tactical assessment shifting to accommodate this new understanding. We need to expand our resources beyond this location. If Sigma contains evidence of deliberate water contamination affecting military installations and potentially civilian populations, this becomes a matter of public health and national security. What are you suggesting? Dr. Kavinsky asked, carefully preparing tissue samples for analysis. That we need additional allies with specialized capabilities, Nathan replied, already formulating potential approaches, medical expertise, investigative resources, and potentially legal protection. The kind of operation we're potentially uncovering would have authorization at the highest levels, which makes conventional reporting channels compromised by definition. The three veterans exchanged looks of understanding. Each had experienced situations where chain of command became part of the problem rather than the solution. Operating outside established systems carried enormous personal risk, but sometimes became the only ethical option when those systems themselves were corrupted. I might have a contact, Dr. Kavinsky offered after careful consideration. Former JAG officer, now working with an environmental advocacy group, focusing on military accountability. Impeccable reputation for discretion and ethical standards. She helped several whistleblowers navigate similar situations. Can you contact her securely? Nathan asked. Yes, through established protocols we developed for previous sensitive cases. Do it, Nathan decided. But minimum details initially, just enough to establish whether she's willing to consult on a matter involving potential environmental contamination connected to military operations. While Dr. Kavinsky moved to a secure communication station, Nathan turned his attention to Dr. Chen, who was studying Sigma's diagnostic images with intense concentration. "Finding something significant?" he inquired, noting her focused expression. "Possibly," she replied, indicating subtle anomalies visible in the comprehensive body scan. "These density variations in specific muscle tissue are consistent with patterns I observed in Afghanistan when investigating suspected chemical exposure cases. The distribution pattern suggests repeated exposure rather than acute contamination." Nathan processed this information, connecting it to their evolving understanding of Sigma's situation, suggesting he was deliberately exposed multiple times as part of a monitoring protocol. "Exactly," Dr. Chen confirmed grimly. "This wasn't opportunistic research. It was systematic, controlled exposure with ongoing medical monitoring, essentially using Sigma as a living test subject for whatever substance they're introducing to the water system." The ethical implications were staggering, even for veterans, accustomed to the moral compromises sometimes justified by national security concerns. Using a military working dog, an animal specifically trained to protect soldiers, as an involuntary test subject for potentially harmful substances, represented a fundamental betrayal of the bond between handlers and their canine partners. Sigma himself seemed to sense their focus on his condition, his amber eyes following their movements with remarkable awareness despite his weakened state. The medications had stabilized his most critical systems, allowing his extraordinary training and resilience to reassert themselves. He attempted to sit up on the examination table, his posture reflecting military discipline despite physical limitations. "Easy, boy," Nathan encouraged, gently supporting the dog's shoulder to prevent strain on his healing wounds. "You're safe now." The simple declaration felt like a sacred promise, one Nathan found himself committed to fulfilling, regardless of the challenges ahead. This wasn't merely about uncovering a conspiracy anymore. It was about honoring the sacrifice and service of a military working dog who had endured unimaginable suffering while maintaining his core training and capabilities. Dr. Kavinsky returned from the secure communication area, her expression guardedly optimistic. "My contact is willing to consult. She's currently 3 hours from our location and can meet us at a secure secondary facility I maintain for special cases." "Details of this facility?" Nathan inquired. "The tactical assessment, automatic, former agricultural research station, on private land, converted to a rehabilitation center for service animals with specialized needs," Dr. Kavinsky explained. "Self-contained power and water systems, multiple approach monitoring and limited access points. I use it primarily for long-term recovery cases requiring isolation from standard clinical environments." Nathan nodded approval at the tactical considerations evident in her description. "Timeline for moving Sigma to this location. He needs at least 4 hours of stabilization treatment here first," Dr. Chen interjected, her medical assessment taking priority. "The comprehensive diagnostics require equipment at this facility, and his condition, while improving, remains vulnerable to transportation stress. Then we use those 4 hours to gather as much information as possible," Nathan decided. Diagnostic results, secure communication with potential allies, and tactical preparation for movement to the secondary facility. Marcus, who had been monitoring both Sigma's condition and the perimeter security systems, approached with a tablet displaying real-time surveillance footage. "We may have a situation developing," he reported professionally. "2 vehicles have passed the clinic 3 times in the past 30 minutes. Different drivers but similar driving patterns, classic surveillance behavior." Nathan examined the footage, immediately recognizing the professional methodology evident in the vehicle's movements. They're establishing observation points and mapping approach routes, he assessed. Not immediate assault preparations, but definitely advanced work for potential intervention. How did they find us so quickly? Dr. Chen asked, concern evident in her voice. They didn't need to find us specifically, Nathan explained. Tactical analysis drawing on years of special operations experience. They likely identified Dr. Kavinsky as a potential resource based on her background and specialty practice. Standard pursuit protocol would include monitoring likely support personnel and facilities, even without specific intelligence confirming our presence. The realization underscored the sophistication of their adversaries, not merely reacting to developments, but anticipating potential moves and establishing coverage of probable resources before confirmation. This accelerates our timeline, Nathan concluded, already adjusting tactical considerations. We need to prepare for potential defensive operations while continuing Sigma's treatment and diagnostic work. Dr. Kavinsky nodded grimly. Marcus, and I have protocols for this contingency. We can maintain essential treatment while implementing security measures designed to delay intervention and provide extraction options if necessary. The calm professionalism with which his unlikely allies responded to this development reinforced Nathan's growing appreciation for the community he had accidentally discovered. These weren't simply veterans with medical expertise, but individuals who had continued their commitment to service and ethical standards despite leaving official military positions, creating their own networks and resources to address needs the system itself sometimes failed to recognize. We've accumulated significant allies in the past 12 hours, Nathan observed, helping Marcus secure potential entry points while the doctors continued Sigma's treatment. From isolated individuals operating independently to a coordinated team, with specialized capabilities and shared purpose. That's how the most effective resistance often forms, Marcus commented as they installed additional security measures on a vulnerable window. Not through formal structures or organizational mandates, but through individuals recognizing shared values and voluntarily combining their unique capabilities toward a common goal. The observation resonated with Nathan's own evolving perspective. 24 hours earlier, he had been entirely alone, disconnected from purpose and community, climbing a mountain with no intention of return. Now he stood among allies, united by shared commitment to uncovering truth and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, a mission that had found him rather than one he had consciously sought. As they completed the security enhancements, Nathan's gaze fell on Sigma, who watched their activities with the focused attention characteristic of military working dogs. Despite everything the animal had endured, torture, medical exploitation, prolonged captivity, his core training and purpose remained intact, his resilience a silent rebuke to Nathan's earlier surrender to despair. We're going to need every ally and resource we can gather, Nathan acknowledged, recognizing the magnitude of what they potentially faced. Because whatever Sigma witnessed and whatever his body contains as evidence, it involves people powerful enough to fabricate military records, conduct covert operations on domestic territory, and deploy significant resources to recover a single military working dog. Meaning we're severely outmatched, Marcus stated practically. In conventional resources, absolutely, Nathan agreed, but we have something they don't. What's that? Marcus asked. Nathan glanced towards Sigma, who maintained his alert observation despite his injuries. The truth, and a very good dog who might just help us prove it. Dup. The diagnostic results arrived with sobering clarity. Dr. Chen and Dr. Kavinsky huddled over the laboratory equipment. their expressions growing increasingly concerned as the analysis confirmed their suspicions. Nathan and Marcus maintained security positions while monitoring the medical team's progress, the tension in the clinic palpable as the evidence materialized. "We've identified several concerning compounds in Sigma's tissue samples," Dr. Kavinsky announced, bringing the detailed results to the central treatment area where they had gathered. Most significantly, elevated levels of a synthetic organophosphate compound with a molecular structure I've never encountered in standard toxicology databases. Dr. Chen examined the chemical analysis with clinical precision. The compound appears designed for water solubility and bioaccumulation in mammalian tissue. The molecular structure suggests potential neurological and endocrine system impacts with chronic exposure. "In non-medical terms?" Nathan prompted, wanting absolute clarity on what they were facing. "Someone has engineered a compound that dissolves effectively in water, accumulates in body tissues over time, and likely affects brain function and hormone systems with repeated exposure," Dr. Kavinsky translated grimly. "It's sophisticated, designed to remain undetected in standard water quality testing while producing gradual physiological effects in exposed populations." Marcus, drawing on his medical background, studied the molecular renderings with growing concern. These side chains resemble compounds developed for non-lethal warfare applications, particularly behavior modification and compliance enhancement research that was supposedly discontinued decades ago. The implications hung heavily in the room. Nathan processed the information through his tactical and operational experience, connecting these findings to the larger pattern they were uncovering. "So, we potentially have a military-developed compound being systematically introduced into water systems that serve both military installations and civilian populations," he summarized. "With Sigma being used as a test subject to monitor bioaccumulation and physiological effects." "That's consistent with our findings," Dr. Chen confirmed. "The compound concentration in Sigma's tissues suggests deliberate, controlled exposure rather than environmental contamination. His medical records would provide invaluable data on how the substance affects biological systems over time." Nathan's mind raced through the operational implications, which explains why they kept him alive despite the security risk. He's not just a witness, he's a living laboratory containing both the compound and the longitudinal data on its effects. The veterinarians continued analyzing the diagnostic results, while Nathan and Marcus maintained their security protocols. The surveillance vehicles had maintained their perimeter positions around the clinic, neither advancing nor withdrawing, a constant reminder of the forces gathering against them. "The water sample you collected from the river shows trace amounts of the same compound," Dr. Kavinsky reported after completing additional analysis, suggesting the water monitoring team we observed is tracking dispersal patterns in the watershed. This confirmation solidified their understanding of the operation they had stumbled upon. Not merely research or isolated testing, but actual deployment of an engineered compound into water systems, a revelation with staggering public health implications. "We need to document everything," Nathan decided. "Comprehensive evidence collection, secure data storage, and distribution to trusted individuals as insurance against intervention." Working with practiced efficiency, the team implemented a systematic evidence preservation protocol. Dr. Chen and Dr. Kavinsky meticulously documented all diagnostic findings, tissue samples, and chemical analyses. Marcus established secure digital storage with military-grade encryption, creating multiple redundant backups. Nathan maintained perimeter security while developing contingency plans for potential defensive operations. Throughout this activity, Sigma continued his remarkable recovery trajectory. The advanced medical care, proper hydration, and nutrition had already produced visible improvement in his condition. His wounds remained serious, but the military working dog's extraordinary resilience was asserting itself with each passing hour. His response to treatment exceeds expectations for his injury profile, Dr. Chen noted with professional admiration. These military working dogs are selected and trained for exceptional physical resilience, but Sigma's recovery parameters suggest he's exceptional even by those standards. As though acknowledging the assessment, Sigma maintained an alert posture on his treatment bed, his attention continuously shifting between team members and external access points. The ingrained security awareness of his operational training still evident despite months of captivity and abuse. "He's still on duty," Nathan observed, recognizing the behavior patterns from his experiences with military K-9 units. Despite everything they've done to him, he's maintained his core training and purpose. The observation carried deeper significance than mere professional assessment. Sigma's unwavering commitment to his training, despite extraordinary suffering, offered a powerful parallel to the human resilience Nathan had nearly abandoned in his own journey. The dog hadn't surrendered his purpose, even under conditions that would have broken most humans. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.